This is Bloomberg Technology. I'm Taylor Riggs in San Francisco. On Wednesday, Donald Trump's effort to tout U.S. economic growth clashed with his trade war. President Trump visited an Apple factory in Austin, Texas, where Tim Cook met him to discuss keeping Macs and iPhones free from tariffs. And I want to bring in Bloomberg Technology's Mark Gurman, who has been covering Apple this. Mark, give me your thoughts on how that meeting went between Tim Cook and President Trump.
Yeah, so I just watched it. Tim Cook was there with Trump, Ivanka Trump was there, Steve Mnuchin, other people from Apple, as well as the Trump administration, and executives from Flex, which is actually the creator of the facility where this computer is being built. Tim Cook basically walked Trump around the facility, talked about the different components that go into the Mac Pro, and how its final assembly is done in Austin, Texas. A lot of the components are actually built in China, exported to Texas, where they're putting the final assembly together. The biggest news moment that happened there is when Bloomberg asked President Trump if this is going to lead to some sort of exemption on overall China tariffs for Apple. And Trump said that that is something that himself and the Trump administration is actually looking at. And you saw aftermarket stock move for Apple about 0.6%, which is significant for a company with that market cap of over $1 trillion. And if Trump were to put in some sort of waiver overall for China tariffs for Apple, that would be extraordinarily significant because, as you know, on December 15th, that's when tariffs are going to kick in for the first time on the iPhone, which generates about 2/3 of Apple's revenue.
Well, Mark, along those lines of that tariff exemption request, we do know that Tim Cook was meeting with him to talk about the Macs and the iPhones, keeping those off the list. We do have that soundbite. Take a listen to how Trump responded.
We're looking at that, and the problem we have is you have Samsung. It's a great company, but it's a competitor of Apple, and it's not fair because we have a trade deal with Korea. We made a great trade deal with South Korea, but we have to treat Apple on a somewhat similar basis as we treat Samsung.
Mark, we have a trade deal with South Korea, so we have to treat Apple similar to Samsung. Explain.
Yeah, what the president is trying to point out here is that Apple produces the majority of its products in China, but it is an American company. And as an American company, they're impacted by those tariffs, right? Because the products are built in China and then they're exported to the United States. The difference is that South Korea is a huge competitor of Apple, and it's a company not based in America, and they produce the majority of their devices outside of China. So the point is, Apple, an American company, is getting taxed, a high percentage on its products, whereas Samsung, Apple's biggest competitor, is a South Korean company, and it's not really getting taxed. And what Tim Cook and Donald Trump are pointing out is that is not fair. It's basically a negative result of these tariffs. And so what he's saying is if there were to be a waiver, that's because of the unfair standpoint, given Apple is a big competitor to Samsung.
So, Mark, in your opinion, did any of this meeting today at the factory change the outline for the September, for the December tariffs and the impact on Apple?
Yeah, what we've seen is that Tim Cook has been extraordinarily influential in Donald Trump's decisions around tariffs. You've seen Apple get some waivers in the past. By the same token, Apple also has not gotten waivers on the Apple Watch and the AirPods and some other products that have been tariffed since the beginning of September. Now, this was nothing really new for Apple, right? This is not their first computer made in Austin, Texas. The previous version of the Mac Pro was made there. This is not a new facility. There's really nothing new going on here except Apple's PR, marketing, and presentation around it. And it's very clear that this is simply an appeal to the Trump administration to work with them in order to avoid tariffs, right? Tim Cook is doing what he needs to do as a businessman, putting his politics aside to get this done. And it seems like this meeting, this very public meeting where, Trump traveled from D.C., Cook traveled from California, Cupertino to make this happen, could have some influence, right? But we will have to see, and it's very possible there's a trade deal done even before December 15th. So I think one way or another, Apple's optimistic this is going to get done.
Well, and like you said, sort of a press day, so to speak, a win-win for both. Trump can claim manufacturing is being back to America. Tim Cook can say that he's talking about bringing manufacturing back. Does it really move the needle, though, as you think about all of the Apple products and what actually is made in Austin, Texas, what is made in the U.S.?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Mac Pro is really the only Apple device made in the United States, made outside of Asia, right? But the thing to note, Taylor, is that the Mac Pro is actually Apple's lowest selling product, right? This is the most expensive device. It's the highest end device they sell, and they're really not making or selling most of a lot of these, right? You're talking about iPhones, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of units a year. For the Mac Pro, this is an under 1 million a year unit product. So this is not a big deal in terms of Apple's overall product line. This is more PR than anything.
Thank you to Bloomberg Technologies' Mark Gurman.